Oh, here we go. And then I have to, almost there. Almost there.
Oh, it says it's streaming live on YouTube.
Yeah.
Hey.
And then I have to mute that so that we don't have feedback. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm here.
I'm like looking at you on YouTube and on my Zoom.
Wow.
I know. Very high tech. Okay. Very meta here. All right. Let me get my questions ready. Okay. All right, we got the tech ready.
Got it.
And hold on. Actually, with the questions, like I said, we're just like, I gave you a bunch of questions. I gave you a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
And
I appreciate it though. I appreciate that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Hey everyone who's live. I don't know who's on, but if you are on, hello. Oh, I see. Okay, so it's okay. So more people may be coming on. Oh, I see. Natalie Smith says hey on YouTube.
Hey, Nat.
Oh, nice. Thanks for watching. Thanks for taking the time. Okay, welcome, Natalie and everybody to Movement is Live. I am Melissa or Coach Mel, and this is my very special guest, Abby Minihan. Say hello.
Good
Abby.
morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Abby of Inkwell, right? That's the name of she's the founder of Inkwell. And we'll be speaking about we'll be speaking to Abby, getting to know Abby and her impact in sports, in soccer, you know, specifically, and how that has continued to this day, where she is continuing to make an impact in other people's lives, other high achievers' lives. And we'll be talking about that. I'll be asking a bunch of questions. Like I said, I gave her a bunch of questions, but I like to, you know, kind of, you know, make this a conversation, and I may not ask any of the questions that I gave you, but
I like that.
yeah, okay, you may be going off the cuff. If anybody on YouTube, I'm just gonna go back and forth between my YouTube screen here to see if anybody has any questions or anything. You could pose them in the chat. Okay. All right. So I'm so happy to have Abby on on especially during Women's History Month. March is Women's History Month, and as most people know, women made history back in the 70s with Title IX. Mm-hmm. Title IX was, it opened opportunities for women to have equal access to sports and all kinds of programs. It wasn't just originally just for sports. It was, you know, so that no one can be discriminated against based on their sex and so it was enacted in 1972. Pat Minks, Representative Pat Minks, and she had co-authors of this particular law that was part of the Education Amendment back in 1972. And that's your little bit of history there.
Good job.
Thank you. I did a little bit of background work, like half an hour before. I'm just kidding. Yeah. So that being said, women basically blasted that door open. And once they had access, women and girls were basically able to do different sports, including soccer, track, and things like that. Any institution that's federally funded needs to give women and girls access equally. And that was like almost 50 years ago, that particular law. And I mean, I don't know, what would you say, Abby? Do you feel like, what do you feel do you feel like we made a lot of strides in that in 50 years, almost 50 years now? Or do you feel like there's,
I mean, I think there's always room for there to be more improvement. I certainly would say, even from when I was a student athlete at Michigan to, going into the coaching world and seeing the resources available now, there certainly has been progress. So, but I think there's always room for improvement in anything that you're doing. But yes, I would say from that point until where we are today. And I think, we can feel and experience kind of the groanings of wanting there to be more and wanting things to be better. I think, the women's national team, I think, is still fighting for equal pay, the U.S. women's national soccer team. So there still are things that definitely need to be better, but I do think we've come a long way for sure.
Yeah, that goes without saying. So when did you start in soccer? Or did you start with soccer, or was there a previous sport? Like, how did you get into soccer?
I started playing because we lived across the street from a soccer field. We lived across the street from an elementary school, and they had like a soccer league on Saturdays. And I'm pretty sure that's why my parents signed me up, because of the proximity to our house. It was just easy. I played tennis a little bit. I had tennis lessons kind of around that same age. I started when I was playing soccer when I was 5. And I remember playing tennis a little bit throughout like early elementary school. But soccer was really the thing for me. I don't know why why I enjoyed it at such a young age, but it just seemed to fit.
You started out, you said, how old were you when you started?
I was 5. I was in kindergarten. Yeah.
In kindergarten. Okay.
Yes.
And so like from 5 years old, were you just playing, like, was it just recreational, or did you join like a club, or like, how did that?
Yeah, it was recreational to start. And then the coach of that like little recreation team kind of created his own little team where, you're trying to scout the players that you want to have come play for you. And so I was on that team, and that was a little bit of a travel team. And then from there, it just kind of, my rec days were over. I was really just playing travel soccer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when like at that point, when would you say like, you were like good? Like when you were like, oh, you got really good at it?
I don't know if I knew that I was good until I want to say maybe I was like 14 or 15. I think I knew I was okay, but I never would have categorized myself as good, because there's always somebody out there that's better than you. But my family was moving to another state, and we were moving to Michigan, and the team in Michigan was like this big club, the Michigan Hawks. And at the time they didn't know, like, I think my coach reached out to the Michigan Hawks and said, there's a player, we're going to play against you. She's moving to your area. Maybe you'd be interested. And they were kind of like blew him off. Like, yeah, whatever. Like, we're a really good team. Kind of like they didn't think that I would probably be good enough for their team. So they kind of just blew them off, but we played them, and I ended up scoring a hat trick against their team, a hat trick, 3 goals. And I think the score was maybe 3-1 or 3-2. And so after the game, the coach was like, obviously it's a resounding yes, you can join our team. And so there was just a little bit of the team we played was older. And so that coach wanted me to play for his team, but then the younger coach kind of caught wind and was like, no, she's going to play at her age group. So there was a little bit of like a fight. And I think that's when I kind of had an inkling of like, oh, they're fighting over me. This is
fighting over me.
Yeah.
But now what position did you play?
I was a forward.
Okay.
So I was a forward most of my career. And then when I played professionally, I played a little bit in the midfield and in outside defender.
Mm-hmm. And so you went from playing in high school. Were you guys good because you were on the team? Like, how did that work out? Like, were you?
So I played in high school and I played club, and I know that's kind of changed now. People don't always play both, but our high school team was extremely good because we had a lot of the same players that were on my club team. We played high school together as well.
Cool.
So it kind of gave us a really strong foundation. We ended up winning, I think it was my senior year, we won this, the state championship, which was a big deal for us. Yeah. Wow. But we were a good team.
You were a good team in high school. And then, so now recruiters are probably coming to games and they're watching everybody play and, but just wheeling back a little bit, like, did you have like a favorite coach? Like, you said you enjoyed soccer. So were the coaches the thing that helped you love the game, or were the players? Like, what was like your favorite aspect? I would say, I would ask.
I mean, I think I always enjoyed my teammates, but I don't think that was why I played. Like, I just enjoyed, I think it was a place where I felt free to achieve and didn't necessarily feel maybe some of the insecurities that I felt just as a person walking around in life. So, kind of when you step over that white paint, like all that stuff would kind of leave me behind. And it just felt like a place where I could just be myself and not be concerned with anything else.
Okay. Okay, cool. And then when, so college, like you're now, do they start recruiting like before senior year? Like, when do they start coming?
So now nowadays, like today, they're recruiting freshmen, 8th graders. Like, it is so early now. But when I was being recruited back in the day, like you got recruited a little bit in your junior year, but when it was your senior year, you got to take your 5 official visits. So it was really your senior year where you took your visits and then you made a decision. Now they're making decisions at, in the 9th grade, like, I'm going to go here, I'm going to, whatever. But so in my senior year, I took some visits, and that was really kind of the year that you are heavily recruited, the summer leading up to that. And then that fall, you take your visits to the places that you're really interested in.
Mm-hmm. And what school ended up having?
So I was recruited by a lot of places, not tooting my own horn, but I basicso had like many choices.
Yeah, you had your pick.
I had my pick. So obviously, you want to get a full scholarship because that is really awesome. And that feels like the culmination of your career as a high schooler. So I had a lot of scholarship offers, Michigan, Florida, Ohio, any Big Ten school, most of the ACC schools. UNC offered a scholarship. It wasn't full. I think it was maybe about 60%. But really, like, I wanted to stay close to home. Like, I wanted my parents to be able to see me play. Like, that was really important for me, for them to be a part of that journey. And I just didn't see myself, getting on a plane and being, across the country and not having them really be a part of the journey. So I ended up going to Michigan. I loved it there. I loved my visit there. the team was great. And so it really wasn't necessarily about who was the coach of the team. And it was really more of how I felt when I went on the visit. And it was, people say that, hey, you just have a feeling and you'll just know. And that's kind of how it felt.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, this is where you belong.
Yeah. Yeah. My parents there still are about an hour away from the campus at University of Michigan. So it just fit.
Yeah. And we didn't plan this, but apparently I'm wearing University of Michigan.
Yeah, we didn't plan it. Maize and blue.
We did not plan this.
You can't say blue and yellow. It's maize and blue.
Maize and blue.
Maize and blue.
And blue. All right. Okay. University, rep your set. Okay. College. How's that? What was like your, I would say like your favorite experience in your college career in soccer?
My favorite experience, probably I have two. So I'll say two. There was one my freshman year. The team that we had was extremely good. We ended up winning the Big Ten tournament, but that was kind of a big deal to win your tournament. And a lot of the teams we played were extremely good. Like I think we almost won the conference. We fell, I think, a point short of winning the conference. So we had something to prove when we went to the tournament, because we, ended up losing the conference that year, even though we should have won. And it's hard. I think you play 4 games in 3 days. So it is like or maybe it's 3 games in 4 days. Sorry.
Okay.
So it's 3 games in 4 days.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, you play like a quarterfinal, a semifinal, and a final. And I think it's different now. They don't do it that way anymore. But back then, that's hard.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That was hard. And so to do that, was a big deal to be able to achieve that. And our rival at the time, everybody's always like, oh, Michigan State's your rival and Ohio State is your rival. But at the time, we were better than them. So they weren't our rival. It was Penn State. Penn State was our rival because Penn State was always just kind of a little bit better than us. And we beat them in the final. So that felt really good.
Oh, cool.
So that was the first memory. And then the second is my senior year. We ended up, come tournament time, when you're in the NCAA tournament, anything can happen. So you could do so well in your conference and then get to the tournament and totally bomb out. And that's kind of what we would do. We would do well in the conference, get to the tournament, win our first round game and lose our second round game. And then, so my senior year, finally, we achieved in the NCAA tournament and got to the Elite Eight, which for our program, that was a first. We were making history. We were so close to making it to the Final Four, which is kind of the apex of your college career. So we fell a little bit short, but it was just the memories with the team, the memories with, that you create with your teammates and how you come together and make it happen for one another. I mean, that is something that I'll definitely never forget.
Yeah. Yeah. And were you at any time, were you like a team captain or coach, was there anything like that? Like,
yes. Yep. So usually I don't think I was my junior year. That's hard to remember, but I think like usually when you're a senior, you're a captain. And so we had tri-captains. There was 3 of us who were captains my senior year.
Okay. And what was that like, being seniors, captains?
I mean, obviously it's great. You're balling out, you're a captain. I think leadership wise, we had a strong group of seniors. So it didn't necessarily feel like, hey, you were on this island and trying to steer the ship yourself. Like we had a group of really strong leadership and we just were kind of representing when you go do the coin toss, but really like our group everyone was really involved in, making decisions and keeping the culture of the team. So it wasn't really like we were responsible for that or in charge of that, because everyone was really bought in and doing their part.
Yeah. And what would you say, like, people would, if they remember Abby back in those days, like what would they kind of classify or your role in on the team? Would they say like, oh, she was like the mother of the team, or the clown, or what was it like?
Probably the clown.
The clown.
I would say the clown. I often led by example. Like I wasn't necessarily overly vocal, telling people what to do. It was more so maybe behind the scenes. Like I would kind of play the role of, making sure everyone's okay. Or if I know someone's not doing well, like following up with them, not in front of people, but just kind of low key behind the scenes. But yeah, probably the clown though. Like humor was kind of my way. Humor was what I used to kind of stay connected with each class, whether I was a senior and they were freshmen. Like I just find humor really opens doors that sometimes other things will not. And so that was just, and I enjoy laughing. Like, soccer for me was so fun. So to be out on the field and doing what you enjoy doing, that was, how could I not crack jokes or
That's awesome. And okay, so after college, like, are you guys thinking, is everybody thinking like going pro, or what are you thinking at this point? Like, or Olympics, or what are you thinking?
So at the time, you kind of had an idea if people were looking at you in terms of going pro. So there was a little bit of an idea of like, okay, I know these teams, they've reached out to my coach, they're interested. I had played with the U21 national team. And so I kind of knew that I played with them my junior year, my sophomore and junior year. And so I knew that there was probably a future for me, and I was willing to kind of keep going. Like, I know some people are like, I don't really want to go that route, but for me, that seemed like the normal option. I wanted to keep playing as long as I could. And so they had a draft. So there actually was a draft I think it was in January of my senior year. So after your season's over and everything's done, there was a draft, and I was drafted 13th overall to a team in Atlanta. And so that was it,
13 out of how many? 13 out of how many?
I want to say maybe there was 45.
Oh, wow. Okay.
People drafted that they, put out there. Yeah.
Yeah, they needed players. And then so Atlanta drafted you said?
Yeah, the Atlanta Beat.
Atlanta Beat, okay.
Atlanta Beat.
All right. So did you go that route?
Yeah, so I was still in school, so I hadn't finished my senior year. So essentially what ended up happening is I got a bunch of independent studies and teachers that let me take classes online, which back then was kind of like unheard of, doing assignments via email and turning things in.
You were doing it.
Yeah, basically. And so I went to Atlanta shortly after that. I think I had to report maybe sometime in February, and drove down with my dad with my stuff and stayed with some other girls on the team until I found a place to live. And just, we had preseason and training, and it was intimidating, but really, really fun, because a couple years prior to that, was the 99 World Cup. So probably 4 years prior to that was kind of really when women's soccer really blew up on the scene.
Yeah.
And so there was still some of that, I think, encouragement and people interested in the game. So, we had lively crowds, we had big crowds. I mean, it felt like the real deal for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So you go to the team, and then what do you just like, how long were you with the team?
So I was with the team for a year, for a season. And then when the season finished, the league, and there were rumblings during the season, but the league ended up folding because they just didn't have enough money to sustain itself, TV sponsorships, and they just didn't have enough cash. And at that time, there was no connection with the MLS. So we were kind of just our own entity out on our own.
Right.
And, I don't know the ins and outs of why it failed, but I think it just was on many levels, just mismanagement. There were a lot of factors. It wasn't just mismanagement, but I think it was a growing pain. So I think that was the unfortunate thing for me, is that I was really just beginning to take off in my career. And then this happened. And at the time I didn't really have any mentors to say, like, this is what you should do now. This is the route you need to go now. If you want to keep playing, you need to do this, this, and this. Like, I had nobody really pushing. Like, there were maybe suggestions, like my coach had kind of suggested playing overseas, but at that time I didn't know. Like, I didn't know, and I don't think she really knew. And had somebody who I really trusted been like, listen, you need to go to Sweden and you need to play here, and here's why, I probably would have been like, okay, I'll do that. But unfortunately I didn't really have that.
Yeah. So what did you do? If you didn't have, what did you decide to do?
So I ended up getting a job. I ended up moving to South Carolina, got a job, working at Abercrombie and Fitch as a manager. And, that was that. There were rumblings that the league was going to get back together. So I was training at Clemson University to stay in shape and, try to stay fit and stay played in. But I was really just kind of on an island, a little bit isolated. But the league did not come back together. It did not materialize until five or 6 years later.
Okay.
And I had already kind of really moved on with my career and my life.
Okay. And then from there, what did you stay in the game? Like, how did you stay connected to the game?
So I stayed in the game just through coaching. I kept getting these coaching jobs that would fall into my lap, which was a blessing. So I had my first collegiate coaching gig at 23 years old. Wow. So I'm basically freshly graduated college student, leading college students. So that was quite interesting. But just kind of stayed in the game through coaching. That seemed like natural to me. My degree at Michigan was in sports management and communication. So it was right up my alley. I couldn't really see myself doing anything else. And I was really passionate about coaching. Like, I enjoyed the aspects of it and wanted to get better and learn more. So I just stayed involved in the game doing that. And I played a little bit here and there if like a team was getting together and they were playing in some summer league, and, I would still jump in and play. And then I think it was 2008, the league came back again and materialized. So it just came back as a different entity, but it was, professional league. And somebody asked me, like, are you want to play? And I'm like, no, like, I haven't played professional, like, I haven't played at this level in 6 years. Like, how at this point, I think I was 28, and to basically have 5 or 6 years between, essentially it was longer than that. That's unheard of, to try to, play and come back. But lo and behold, I ended up somehow, I felt like there was something in me that was like, you need to try to do this. You just need to try. And so I started training, ended up trying out in Chicago and Boston, and made Boston's roster, which was, I don't know if anybody really knew my story, but I hadn't played soccer. I hadn't played like competitive, like genuinely competitively, consistently in probably 6 or 7 years, 6 years. So to do that was like, I think I proved something to myself. And so I made the roster, moved to Boston, didn't play a lot. The people playing in front of me were outstanding. I think Heather Mitz, I was playing defense for their team. So it was like Heather Mitz at the time, she was like, on the national team playing all the minutes. So I'm not playing over her. And then the other outside back was Alex Scott. Alex Scott is English. So she played with the English women's team. And so these, I wasn't going to get PT over them. But I busted my buns, got in some games, enjoyed my experience, although there were some things about it that were just difficult. I think when you are heading towards 30 and you're not making a lot of money, you're kind of questioning like I gotta make some moves here. So when the season ended, they wanted me to stay in Boston, but I had some coaching gigs lined up. Like people were like, yo, come coach here. And they wanted me to basically stay and on Pittance. And I just couldn't do it. I couldn't swing it financially. Again, I think if somebody would have said, listen, this is what you need to do if you want to, because I really didn't at that time know, like I didn't have a vision over my life. I didn't really know what it was I wanted to do. And just having someone say, if you want this, this is how this goes.
Yeah. But did you reach out to anyone? Did you reach out to?
No, like I really didn't. I was very much an island for a long time in my life. Like I really was very internal, like, took things internally, was not vulnerable around people. I would say for kind of that, the first 25 years of my life, I really probably didn't do friendships as well as I do now, and didn't realize the power of mentorship. In soccer. Like, I think I had some people that I went to just for in life, but they didn't know about soccer and like how that works and, what that looks like. So from like a playing perspective, I just never had anybody speaking into me like that, consistently. That was kind of like a coach that, didn't necessarily coach me. Like we could have this relationship because you're not coaching me, but you're a coach and you understand.
Right. But you also didn't reach out to any other players either, like people who are in the same boat as you. Like what?
No.
You guys have at least like a networking group. Like, did you guys kind of help each other in that way?
I could be mistaken and maybe I'm missing, so I apologize if I'm missing things, but no, like the team in Boston, it was really splintered because you had really young players who were just out of college, who are on the roster. So they're, hungry. They know that they're still going to go this route. And then you had your national teamers, who are doing their thing. They have they just played the Olympics. They've got their endorsements and their agents and all their other things going on. And then there was kind of just this little sliver in the middle of people like me who were kind of in betweeners, right? Who this could go either way.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily know if the staff did a great job articulating what they would have liked to see for us. Like it was very much just a professional environment.
Sure.
And I think that was the thing when I look back, I was always like, we were, people were professional, but they still had the same desires and needs as just a person, right. Wanting to be built in, wanting to be poured into, wanting to receive feedback that was just genuine and real, wanting to have relationship. And I don't know if the staff there, maybe that was their priority, and that's fine. Like there's different strokes for different folks. And, but I think for those of us who are kind of in that space, we probably could have benefited from that. and just having more direction. But I think, when, hey, if this is a professional environment, you figure it out. You're a professional. But you're also 27, 28, and you still need help.
Yeah. And that's curious to me that they didn't foster that level of, support, because not only are you an island, but just, like that whole field, the league is like, it's like its own island, right? So, yeah, that's too bad that they didn't take advantage of that. Like, kind of giving you guys more guidance would have been helpful, right? So from there, okay, you play for Boston, and do people like come? Does you said like the national team was asking for you to come play for them? Is that how it works? Like they're watching they're watching your games, and then they ask you to play for the national team, or how does that work?
So let me rewind. So yes, they do watch professional games, and they have a pulse on what is happening there.
Yeah.
How I got asked was when I played for the U21 team. So this was back when I was in college. I was asked to play my sophomore year. They invited me to an event called the Algarve Cup. And it's usually kind of an event that, it's a great opportunity to invite your younger players in to play with the full team. So it's good exposure. There's not too much riding on the event. So, there's a little freedom there.
Yeah.
So they invited me in to play, and in a roundabout way, I had some reasonings, but really I was afraid, but I said no. I ended up telling them no.
Okay.
So I told them no then, and then post college, when I was down in Clemson, so I think I probably was 23 or 24, I was invited in again, and I had some friends
to play for the national team.
Yes, to play for the national team. So this is like Abby Wambach, Hope Solo, Mia Hamm. This is the real deal. And I had some friends who were playing at the time on the team, and I called and said, I got invited in, what do you think? And they were like, don't come. It is hell. It is horrible. That's what they said.
Let's see. I want to see. What do you mean it's hell? What does that mean?
So I just think at the time it was just so cutthroat. That was the year. Wow. I think that was the year. I can't remember if it was the World Cup or the Olympics, but they didn't win. Okay. They lost to Brazil, and like it was just, I think, so pressurized. The environment was so pressurized, and it was just unenjoyable for this person. But unfortunately, that was the feedback I got. And again, you didn't have
any other.
Yeah, I really didn't. And that's no one's fault. That's my fault.
You didn't have insight. You didn't have any other. So you were just going
by else speaking some better truth. And that would be like, listen, you need to go do this. Who cares? Just, if it's horrible, then you never have to do it again. But really underneath that was just a lot of fear. Like that's really, it's not anybody's fault that I said no. I chose no because no was just more comfortable for me. It didn't stretch me. It didn't expose me. It didn't make me feel inadequate. And to say yes was an opportunity to experience all those things. And that just was too painful and scary for me.
What were you fearful of? What would be the worst thing to happen?
Obviously it's irrational. You look back now and I'm like, it's extremely irrational, but I think
it may not be irrational, but it's real.
Real. Yeah. I think for me, it was just the feeling of, I had achieved so much in my soccer career, and I had worked for that, like I had worked really hard. Like I would train all the time. And I put in the hours, and the thought of not being able to maybe be good enough in that environment, for whatever reason, just made me feel like I didn't even want to try. I will say at the time, the coach, I didn't necessarily enjoy her coaching style. And so that also played into it. Like I had been coached by her before and really just didn't feel like she brought out the best in me, and it wasn't an enjoyable experience. And again, I played because I enjoyed it. Yeah. And so the thought of not being able to enjoy this felt a little bit miserable to me. And that, that was my reasoning, part of my reasoning.
Right. And so, okay, so now you played for Atlanta, you played for Boston, and you've been coaching. So, and in that, like, okay, so then, you start, what happens then? Do you start your family then, or when?
So I leave Boston and end up coaching at a couple different places, but land at Syracuse University. And they were getting ready to transition into the ACC. So I was like the first assistant there. It was kind of a big deal. It was a big job at a pretty, now they weren't necessarily like a soccer school, but okay. Hey, this is a BCS school. They've got resources. They've got money.
BCS means?
BCS schools are just, I don't know what the acronym actually stands for, but they're just large institutions.
That big college school, maybe?
Yeah. Big schools. These would be like your major conferences, like your Big Ten,
big conference schools,
ACC,
probably. Yeah, okay.
Pac-12.
Yeah, Syracuse is like football. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you head coach for them.
I am assistant coach there. So I'm a first assistant, and I'm coaching for a head coach who was with the national team. He was an assistant with the national team. So it felt like, ooh, like this is a big job. Like, look at me. But I had a lot to learn, but through that got reconnected with my now husband. And so we ended up getting married while I was there. So I ended up leaving there to come down south to South Carolina. And being in South Carolina, I was going to kind of just be done with coaching and try to venture into another area. I had kind of been jaded. Syracuse was hard. Like there was a lot of just transition. They were a program that was trying to get better because they had to, because they're going into play against, Wake Forest, UNC, Virginia, these schools that are, in the top 10 consistently. Top 10 schools, yeah. So there was just a lot of recruiting, a lot of, tilling the soil to get this thing ready. And that's hard. It's just hard work. So I left there just tired. And I was done. Like I wasn't going to coach anymore. And lo and behold, somebody approached me in a parking lot, somebody I didn't know. And they were like, hey, there's this coaching job. You need to really apply for it. You need to consider it. And I'm like, I don't even know who you are. Like, who are you? And I ended up applying just thinking that, if this is meant to be and supposed to happen, then it will. And if it's not, then I can just continue on with my plan. And ended up getting the job. Like, didn't even necessarily want the job, but ended up like it got handed to me. And so it was my first head coaching experience at a Division I school. So it's a little Division I school in South Carolina, called USC Upstate. And it was literally 20 minutes from my house, 25 minutes. So it just fit perfectly. Yeah. And
it's almost like full circle for you, like, because you lived across the street from a soccer field when you were a little kid, and now you're like, right there playing coaching soccer.
Yeah. So it was, it definitely felt special just because of the way that it happened. Like, here I am wanting to be done, and it ended up being probably one of the hardest experiences in certain ways, but then one of the best experiences that I've had in other ways. So it was.
What's one way where it was the best experience?
Just the relationships. I think, at that time I was just coming into knowing the person that I really was trying to become. I wasn't there yet. I don't know if we ever get there, but I was just more confident in who I wanted to be and how I wanted to care for the people in my program. And I know I didn't get it right all the time, but I think for the people who had enough grace for my mistakes, we forged some really great relationships, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I still communicate with many of them. So that to me is really precious and something that I treasure. Yeah. But then we didn't win. I'm a high performing individual, and we didn't win. We didn't win games for many reasons. And that was difficult because I never really shared this with the team because I never wanted it to be an excuse for them, but we were underfunded so badly, and we were so below even the next school, that it was like scholarship wise, resource wise. And the university genuinely didn't care about us winning. Like, they had articulated that, when that's fine. But as a high performer, I'm like, yeah, whatever, but we're going to try to win. So that was just really painful. That was really difficult for me because it didn't necessarily matter how hard I tried or how much effort I put in. There were just things that we were not going to overcome.
Yeah. Which is very telling. Like that's interesting that you make that point, how everything needs to be in conjunction. Like, you don't win on your own. Like, nobody wins by themselves. Nobody's really an island necessarily, right? You have this support, and you need to have that. You need to have resources. You need to have the access. You need to have the opportunity to succeed, and that you weren't given the resources. That's very interesting that you guys weren't given enough resources to really shine and perform really well, which is what you're used to, what you wanted for these girls, so
yeah.
So, but you took that, you were there for how long as a head coach?
I was there for 5 years.
And you took that experience, and how did you, where did you weave that into?
So I ended up leaving. I probably could have stayed there for 20 years because results were not something they were interested in. They just wanted those girls to get good grades and be good citizens. And for the most part, they were. So I could have stayed as long as I wanted, but I just felt I was pregnant at the time. And sometimes you get a feeling that, there's just something inside that this isn't congruent anymore. This isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. I couldn't necessarily pinpoint what it was I was supposed to be doing, but I just knew my time here was done. And so I ended up leaving and transitioning out of there. Kind of really floundered for 2.5 years, 3 years. And then really through a series of events and learning some information, I just felt really compelled to that coaching was that's why I loved to coach. It was really the relationships. I enjoyed the strategy, but that's not why I coached. It wasn't because I like X's and O's. I coached because of the people and the relationships and helping people get from A to B and helping people see things differently and helping people grow and achieve. That was the thing that really fired me up. And so when I came across the opportunity to do some coaching, do some strengths coaching through a company called Core Clarity, and I loved it. like just fell in love with the company's mission, their vision, and how they go about it. And felt like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And, you know, I ran into some other information that I felt like I know that this is it. And I think once you have that experience, there's really no other road to go down, because it's so clear and it's so crystallized that you just know, like, this is what lights me up. This is what energizes me. This is where I operate best. This is where I give my discretionary energy. And I love what I'm doing. And that happened to be in coaching. And it started really as strengths coaching, but now that I feel like that's just one piece of what I do. It's a large piece of what I do, but I think just coaching people up in general is my thing.
That's your jam. Now, your when you speak about, like, some people, I know what you talk about when you say strengths, but maybe some people don't know what that means, like coaching people's strengths. What does that mean for you?
So for me, essentially, everybody has kind of a natural pattern of thought, feeling, and behavior that, whether they know it or not, they're productively applying it every day. Sometimes it's not productive, and that's what you need a coach for. But essentially it's identifying what those are, and then how are they working? Like, are they working well in you? Because these are the places that you're going to gain your most energy and feel most fulfilled if you're operating in them. So let's see if we can operate in them more, but let's also troubleshoot and see the ways that they're not working well and not working for you. And can we leverage them so that they work better for you, for your leadership, for your team?
Yeah. Yeah. And is that what you're doing now with Inkwell? You founded Inkwell, and, you know, is that what your mission for Inkwell is to start, you know,
yeah,
coaching
so we
continue to coach people's strengths?
Yeah, so we use strengths coaching in the Inkwell, but what I really am passionate about is seeing people in leadership. And obviously that can look a lot of different ways. Leadership can be young professionals. Leadership can be managers, administrators, executives, athletes, C-suite executives, other coaches, athletics coaches. Just if you're leading at all, I think one of the things that happens in leadership is it's a place where you don't want to be exposed as weak or not good enough. But in that, there can be a little bit of hiding and not exposing yourself to new information, because if you expose yourself to something new, that means, well, then you didn't know it, so that you weren't competent in it.
And you made that to change.
Yeah. And I think just leadership in general, you're so busy, it's very difficult to really make the time for your own growth, your own clarity. But I think the mistake that people make is they are not clear on who they are. So you're almost building your leadership on a faulty foundation, because it's not about the books that you read that you can implement this information. It's about, do you know who you are, what you bring to the table, and how to build your leadership off of those things and be able to communicate your needs to others so that they can assist you in what your vision is. And I think there's just a lack of clarity around that, and then how to consistently operate in that. And then how do you troubleshoot that when you know something's maybe not quite right? And that's what we do. So we help leaders become brilliant. We help leaders are already brilliant, but we help them shine. We help them get clear and get the clarity that they need to make the impact that they want. So it's really, we help leaders get better results. That's at the end of the day, that's what is at the end of that is better results, better performance. And I don't know a leader who doesn't want that.
Yeah, indeed. So, we are close to an hour here, and I want to, yeah, I know. I could actually talk to you for hours, as you know. We could talk all day because I need some more of that tea. Maybe we talk later. So, but I really want to know, are your family now, like you have kids? Like, do you have sons, daughters? Like what?
Yeah,
How old are they?
I have two daughters, 7 and 5.
Are they also athletically inclined at all so far?
We don't know yet. I mean, they're
You don't
both
know.
playing soccer.
They're both playing soccer. Oh,
Because
cute.
it's close to our house.
Oh. Again,
Maybe it's
just
because it's
can't get
easy for
away
us,
from it.
Yeah.
You can't get away from it. This is part of you. Yeah.
We did dance. We have done dance, but it seems just like soccer right now. I think we'll try different sports, but soccer seems fine for now. I think it's too early to tell. There might be moments, but I really try not to get too get too into it. Because I can become the coach really easily, and I don't know if that's for the benefit of my kids. Like, I don't think that helps.
You want them to find it, and maybe find what they enjoy, like you did.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to really stay silent, which is difficult, and just enjoy it.
And if they were to come to you and well, if you were to coach Abby at, if you were to tell her something at 7, what would you say to Abby 7, 15, 18? What would you?
Girl, that's a hard question. I mean, I think at 7, it's really more about confidence and knowing that you're like, regardless of what you do here, like if you're playing a sport, you're amazing. Like, you are valuable and you are amazing. It's not you're not amazing because you scored a goal, even though that's wonderful and we celebrate that. You're amazing just because of who you are, and that's what makes you amazing. It's not anything that you're doing that you don't earn that. It's just what you already are and what you already have.
Yeah.
That's what I would say to the 7-year-old. 18-year-old, shoot. I would say, girl, get it together. No, I think it would be really more of, I think at those ages, and I mean, I could be amiss, but I think many adults who are 40
Yeah.
need to hear this too. Like, you have something to offer the world. Like, and it is not, it's not necessarily your work, your job. So what is it that how do you want to live your life? Like, what's important to you? How do you want to live your life? And then what are the things that you really value? And then are your decisions and your actions aligning with those things consistently enough? Because I think at those younger ages, you're so worried about what everybody else thinks and what everybody else has and what everybody else is doing and trying to keep up and fit in, that you lose a sense of yourself and who you are and what you actually want. But I think adults need that too.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, at that age, at those ages, like, you're pretty much just gathering information and just like we were talking about early before we got on, like, we're basically trying to survive. And so it's like, I think once we're older and, we have our own lives, then we can actually maybe go to a therapist, go to a coach, go to a mentor, and unlearn. Do a lot of unlearning, the things that just like helped us survive and protected us. But now, how do we now thrive? How do we actually, how do we really live now? And that's why I asked, like, what would you say to her at those ages, but it ain't like she would listen to you anyways.
Right. That's the thing.
She wouldn't listen to you at that
because
age.
you don't know.
Ready.
Yeah.
You're just not ready at that point.
You're just not ready. You don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know.
But yes, never I mean, I've been to therapy. I highly endorse therapy. I think if you are anyone in
like having
coaching, anyone in leadership should be receiving because you are giving and pouring out all the time, and everybody's got blind spots. So to not have somebody who's in your corner, but yet holding the position of saying, hold on a second, did you hear what you just said? Or I know, yes, I know that and that's not necessarily going to come from your coworkers or your peers because of your positioning. Correct. So to not have somebody around you that's speaking truth in life and challenging you, I think is just a mistake.
Yeah. It can be. Yeah.
Yes.
And so with that being said, you have you have Inkwell. It's literally, it's brand new, right? It's literally brand this year. You founded this company. And what are you most looking forward to, giving and receiving through Inkwell?
I think the thing that I love to do when I'm working with clients is I love to serve them in the way of one-on-one coaching, but that we are navigating these pieces of identity and getting clear and nailing them down, and just to see people start to believe, whether it was a superficial belief, maybe like, yeah, I know I'm good at that, but like really start to see the strength of how they operate and how impactful it is. I think that's probably one of my favorite things. And then starting to nail down purpose and mission from that, and start to see people, like it's almost like pulling the bow back and getting ready to shoot the arrow. It is like, I just love it. It's like my favorite. So that's what I love to give.
That bullseye too. Like every now and again you hit that bullseye and it's like,
yes,
God, I'm so geeked.
Yes.
Yes. And yeah, so what are you looking forward to receiving from the work that you're doing?
I think the receiving is just, well, it's the opportunity. Like I'm always honored when people are like, hey, like, would you help me? Or, I was wondering if, I just love that. Like, I love the relationship that I get to enter into and the opportunity for that. So I'm always super grateful to, that people are willing to kind of open up and be vulnerable. Like, I love that. And then just, I think, receiving the opportunity to feel my own alignment and congruency with what I'm doing. Because every time I work with somebody, it's the same thing. It's just like, God, thank you. Like, thank you that I get to do this. This is what I love.
I get to do. Yes. I say that all the time. I get to do this. It's so cool. I'm going to look into the chat here. We have some comments. Look here.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, we have Natalie's on, Samuel.
That's my dad. Hey, Dad.
Oh, Kevin Perigo is on as well.
Yeah, that's my old coach.
Oh,
he was if Kevin's still listening, shout out to Kevin Perigo, because he was the coach that helped me develop big time. Like, if I hadn't run into Kevin and his brother, I don't think I would maybe be where I got to. Oh,
wow. So Natalie had said earlier, she had related to something you said about when she's heading towards 42 and had the same thought you had at 30. Like, I got to make some money here. Like when you were talking about, like, I got to, I can't just be at this job that's giving me pittance here. Like I gotta make moves. So she related to that. And great discussion, especially around leadership, your dad said. And I see Kevin has, oh, very good interview. Oh, thank you. Abby's been, she's amazing. She's brilliant. And he said, he says, I miss her personality and being around her. People like her want me to be at my best for her. Oh my God.
All right, Kev.
Oh. And your dad said, you and your family made it fun for her and taught some real great foundational things. Oh,
true.
These are some great comments. Anybody have any questions for Miss Abby? This is cool.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was so fun. Great opportunity. You, we could keep this going.
No, well,
no.
You already know. You already know. But yeah, so I'm really so appreciative of having you on. Like I told you the other day, I had no idea I was we connected, and I already knew that you were brilliant at what you do as a coach and for, coaching leadership, but I really didn't know all of this. And this was so cool. I'm like, oh my God, like, this is just so cool. Like that you had this amazing career and and then you're here having another chapter to an amazing career. So I had to have you on. I had to share, because we could have actually had this conversation. We were starting to have this conversation, but I was like, no, I need to share you. I need to share you with the rest of the world. This is too many gold bars that you're spitting here. So I had to share it. Anything else? Let's see. Go back to the chat. No. Laura Kirby just came on. She's just said, I'm lucky enough to be neighbors with Abby.
She's my neighbor, Laura.
I feel so privileged to know and love her. Go Abby.
That's
indeed.
So kind.
Which is a great way to end.
Girl.
Oh, on that note. Go Abby. I'm very proud of you. I know Inkwell's gonna be doing big things. You just told me you got another client. I'm just so excited for you. So
thank you.
And yeah, so if anybody has any other questions, feel free to leave them in the chat. And this video will be shareable. I'll be able, Abby's gonna post it. I'll post it. Share it with your sons, your daughters, especially. This was really some great insight that Abby shared with us. Being a professional athlete, being a coach, a head coach. This is some really, really great information that everybody could take, from any area. So I highly encourage you guys to share it, ask questions, and I will also put a link to Abby. Do you want to plug your course or?
Yeah, I'll see this in a few weeks. I think April 15th. I will be doing a webinar, and the webinar really will just talk about what I am doing, because I have made a couple of pivots from when I first kind of launched, and based on the clientele that were coming to me and the needs that were arising. And so essentially I'll be going through the framework that I use, but not just like giving information, like there's going to be some meat there. Hey, if you are struggling with any of these things, or you do want to just be better at what you're doing, there'll be some nuggets there for you, and just to come show up. So I'll put that information out there when it's a little more solidified, and I've got my ducks in a row.
Yes, and but I will be putting in the description box, I will be putting all of Abby's contact information. So if you do have, so that you can start following her on her social media, and then she will start posting once she's got everything ready. She'll start posting when that course is going to happen, when that webinar is going to happen, and what time you should be there. It's going to be virtual, right?
Yes. Yep.
It'll be virtual, so you guys will definitely want to be on her email list so that you can be updated with what is happening when that webinar is happening, because you'll definitely want to listen in on what her latest offer, and maybe you can use the information for yourself, or take or you may know somebody who could use her offer as well. So there's one last question from your dad.
What's up, Dad?
He said, what do you need to do to take your business to the next level? What do you feel you need?
Me personally, I need to do this webinar.
That's one.
I think it's just, for me personally, starting a business, there's so much that people don't understand, and that I didn't even understand, that goes on behind what's up, what's posted on social media or even a website, really trying to nail down, niche down, like who are the people that you're serving, and who do you want to serve, and who are the people that you're serving, and what are you communicating? What are the pain points that you're solving? Like, what's your solution? How do you provide the service that solves a problem? Like, what are the problems you solve for these people? And that has been a process. I think personal branding, like, how do you want to build your business out off of the person that you are, not just something you read in a book or what you think you should be doing, so that it's sustainable and scalable. Like, these are all things that are a lot of thought. So I think for me, the next steps are really getting congruent with that, but then putting the things in place, doing the things that I need to do to put these things into action consistently. Because I think with anything, you have to show up consistently every day. And that can be a challenge sometimes. So I think it's just consistent, one foot in front of the other.
One foot in front of the other. And it's going to take time, and, so, but that's what it takes. It's going to take a lot of consistency and time.
Can I just put one small plug in? To join the mailing list, you got to head to the website. It's www.theinkwellec.com. So www.theinkwellec.com. There's a little link of like, do you want to lead powerfully? And if you do, you push that link, and that gets you signed up for the emailing list. And really, it's not spamming. It's really just trying to give really good leadership content. So yeah, check it out.
Yeah, you'll definitely want to be on the email list. And if you've written it down, great. But it's also going to be in the description box as well. I will put that particular link that she mentioned. I'll put that on the site. I mean, in the description box. And so I want to thank you again, Abby. Thank you, everybody who watched live.
Thank you so
Tremaine
much.
Price, she just hopped on as well.
Tremaine's my cousin.
Oh, so nice. This is so nice to have this support. Oh, so you're not an island, are you?
I said I was an island. I'm not an island anymore. I was
never an island. That's the thing.
But I was in my own my own head.
But now it's right on time. Now, right on time. All right. Thank you again.
Thanks, Mel. I'll see you on the flip side, friend.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to end the YouTube. Thank you, everybody on YouTube. I'm gonna